People opposing women abuse, or POWA, is urging government to fast-track 3 new bills introduced to Parliament in September 2020, which are specifically intended to tackle gender-based violence. POWA is raising awareness and asking South Africans to add their voices to #EndDomesticSilence by recording voice notes to President Cyril Ramaphosa during the 16 Days of Activism for no violence against women and children. Well, joining us now to talk about these 3 bills and what they entail is the Chief Executive Officer of POWA, as I said, Mary Makgaba. Mary, it's great to have you. Welcome, and thanks so much for being our guest here on Morning Live.
Thank you, Leanne.
First and foremost, talk to us about these 3 bills. Perhaps you can break them down to us. What is in these bills?
Yes, we would like the President and Parliament to fast-track the process of signing the 3 bills which were approved by Parliament. The 3 bills are as follows. The first one is the Criminal Law, Sexual Offences and Related Matters Amendment Act. This creates a new offences, in particular for sexual intimidation, the extent of the ambit of the offence of incest, extent of the duty of reporting suspected sexual abuse of children or a child. It also ended and expanded the scope, in particular, of the National Register for Sex Offenders, where there will be public naming and shaming of the perpetrators. The second one is the Criminal and Related Matters Amendment Bill, which tightens the issue of bail. Remember, Leanne, we are crying as civil society organizations because most of the perpetrators or accused persons, they conduct these offenses related to GBV. Later, you see them walking on the street and roaming the streets with the victims. Victims not being given feedback and reports about their bail and why are they back in their communities. It also expands offenses for which minimum sentences must be imposed. The third one is the Domestic Violence Amendment Bill, where it extended certain provisions. Remember, initially it was the GVA Act 116 of 1998 about people who are sharing relationships, people who are having intimate relationships, sharing same residence. But it included other provisions, for instance, those people who are in any form of relationships, those who are engaged, those who are dating, those who are in customary relationships, and those who are in actual and perceived to be in romantic, intimate, and sexual relationships of any length of time. It also extended the definition of domestic violence to include our senior citizens so that they can be protected from elderly abuse.
All right, so these are the 3 bills. This is what we're urging the President to sign as fast as possible into law, because this is perhaps one way that we can help South Africans, and particularly the women of South Africa. I mean, I'm reading some of the statistics that are brought out, and this is a claim saying that 7 women are killed every single day in South Africa, and a reported 40 to 50% of men have admitted to perpetrating physical violence on their partner. This is frightening. Numbers like this are very frightening.
Yes, Lee, I strongly agree with you. Remember, every 3 hours a woman is killed in South Africa. If you look into the statistics, particularly the femicide patterns and the trends are very much worrisome. That is why it is very important for us to celebrate the 16 Days of Activism, because it's an international campaign that is celebrated worldwide to challenge violence against women and children. We celebrate it every year from the 25th of November to the 10th of December. But in some countries, according to World Health Organizations, they raise funds for non-governmental organizations during 16 Days of Activism so that they can continue with outreach programs, advocacy, providing psychosocial support, because most civil society organizations were underfunded. So it is very, very important that we celebrate this 16 Days of Activism this year.
One of the big things we spoke about, which coincidentally was yesterday, we spoke about a term called bystanderism. And it's where people just, they keep quiet. They stand by and they witness gender-based violence and they say nothing about it. Now, one of the big things from this particular campaign, which I know has now been running for, I think it's going into its 2nd year, is the End Domestic Silence. And this is to urge people to speak up about domestic violence and to tell particularly the victims of domestic violence that they don't need to be living through this. How often does this happen? How often do you find that women do not speak about being abused at the hands of their partners?
Thank you, Leanne. Most of the women that are being abused, whether we call them victims or survivors, some of them, they don't speak for various reasons, particularly if we're speaking of unemployed women. For financial security, you find that is a woman, is a young girl, stays with a guy, they're dating or they're in a relationship or any intimate relationship. It's very difficult for them to speak out because for financial reasons, they wanted to be maintained for basic needs. So it is very, very important that we do the campaign, #End Domestic Silence. Us and Jogo, we have partnered last year and created this #, End Domestic Silence, to make sure that we create awareness for women about the dangers of being silent. We need women to stand out and speak out against any form of gender-based violence. The hashtag was created for End Domestic Silence, looking into the number of the statistics for women that are being abused in South Africa. So we want women to be protected. We wanted women to be safe. With Joko, with our partner, that's why we are saying, we are calling all South Africans, we're having this call for action so that they can record their voice notes, which will be collected and collated in the form of a petition, which will be delivered to the president so that we can reduce the high prevalence of GBV in our country.
When you talk about these voice notes and what you want people to say, what is it that you're hoping to get from people when they send these voice notes?
We want the 3 most important bills that we've been speaking about to be signed into law. There is no time to waste.
Sorry, is that what you're asking people to say, is to say, Mr. President, we want you to sign these bills? Is that the kind of thing that you're hoping people will send in these voice notes?
Yes, we want Mr. President to sign those bills and turn them into law urgently, because we've got a national crisis. There is no time to waste. GBV is the second pandemic. As soon as possible, they must be signed into law.
Yeah. Usually we look in South Africa and these kind of things, they take time that unfortunately victims of gender-based violence don't have on their side. How long does it actually take, I mean, to sign something like this into law if it is not fast-tracked the way we're trying to do it now?
Sometimes in government it can take 2 years to 3 years, which is long for us, but we don't want it to be like that. Even if they can say within 153 days, it's too much. Looking into the statistics, you look recently what is happening in terms of GBVF. You look into TV, you watch TV every day, you see women being killed, elderly people being killed, women, young girls. It could be your aunt, it could be your sister, it could be your neighbor, your classmate. As long as in terms of gender, you are a woman, we are not safe in South Africa. So we want them to be fast-tracked as a sense of agency.
Yeah. You know, you listen to conversations that women have and the plight of women, and they just say that they don't feel safe going anywhere. They just feel like a victim the entire time, or that that it is going to inevitably happen. And this is a problem for women. You can't go out. Some women can't go home. They can't go to the workplace. Everywhere they go, they face some form of abuse. And this is a plague on our society. It really is.
Yes, and you are very, very right. That is why, other than the Joko Partnership Program we are marching at 1 o'clock. We'll be handing over the memorandum today as People Oppose Women Abuse to Minister Bekitele, highlighting our frustration and challenges, particularly with the treatment of GBV survivors, how cases are being handled, delaying finalization of cases. We are also handing 2 memorandums. One is for Minister Bekitele and the second one is for Advocate Shamila Badoui, the National Director of Public Prosecutions. We wanted them to fast-track the process of making sure that there is speedy finalization of GBV cases. Sometimes there are delays in finalization of cases. In courts, our victims and survivors are not given feedback. They don't know progress about cases. So we'll be marching to the NPA headquarters as I'm speaking today at 1 o'clock.
So if I ask you, in particular this period during lockdown, because obviously we know that this has played a major role in seeing the rising of figures of domestic violence, because the partners could go nowhere. You were locked down, and unfortunately we saw this going higher. From your experience and from POWA's side of things, how bad did it get? Or is it still? Has this just remained? Have we seen numbers coming down slightly? Or, just perhaps paint a picture for us how bad the situation was, particularly during lockdown?
Thank you, Lee. And during lockdown, it was very, very, very difficult, particularly for women to speak out against any form of violence. Women were very quiet. Women were very silent. When I look into our shelters, we look into some admissions. Women were not coming. Our shelters were being empty because women are scared. because they were locked down with the abusers and the perpetrators in their homes. So it was very difficult for them to report, because in terms of freedom of movement, restrictions that were made in terms of lockdown. So most of them were phoning. We've got a telephonic number that we're using 24/7 during lockdown. We are also linked with the Department of Social Development, GBV Command Center. Most of them were phoning, but they tell us these are the problems. We waited for them, but they never came. So it means abusers were abusing them worse during lockdown. That is what I can see from our side. So I'm urging women that even if you are at home, you are being abused, always make sure that their children know your house, your house number, so that when there is something, they must have emergency numbers and your house number, the color of your house. And then when you are screaming, make sure that you don't go to closed spaces. Always give your children the numbers. Your children must not help you to fight the perpetrator or your husband. They must always run around, go to neighbors and call the police. Always give them the numbers in hands, particularly during lockdown, so that you are able to escape as a survivor when you're at home.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned neighbors, and you mentioned people that are around you. You know, there are signs to look out for, and this is important and vigilant. And vigilance is very, very important from everyone around, because domestic violence doesn't happen in a void. As we say, there are people witnessing it but keeping quiet about it. How important is it that somebody gets involved and tries to help, and perhaps reaches out to somebody that they know is being abused? How do you get involved without stepping over the line? Because before you know it, you may yourself get into trouble because you're interfering in someone else's life, but you're actually trying to save a life. So how do we draw a distinction between those two?
It is very important to do that, but you cannot do it confidentially. Even if you phone us, our social workers, they'll need the person to come, or they'll go to the person's home place. So the very most important thing is to sit down, refer the person to psychologists and social workers so that they can prepare the person. Remember, sometimes when gender-based violence or domestic violence happens, people are in denial. They don't want to speak out particularly. There are early warning signs. If you've got a friend or you've got somebody that you know, you can see that there are early warning signs that the person is being abused. Arrange to have a tea with the person, go out and then try to speak to the person to say, I'm available, I can be able to give you the support. This is the person that you can be able to speak to. Just make a referral and don't judge the person, because some people are scared of telling other people. They want to keep it secretive. Be open, create some time, go for coffee or tea together, and then you start talking, if you have that close relationship. If you don't have that close relationship with the person, you can refer to any other person. If she attends a church, you can talk to the spiritual father or the pastor or the reverend of the church, so that you can be able to assist. Let's speak out. Let's not leave it and say, no, my neighbor is in an abusive relationship, I'm leaving it. Report it elsewhere. You can even phone the police if they're fighting. If it's physical, it involves children, it's loud, and just do something. We need to stand up against gender-based violence. We cannot keep quiet. Even if the person is right, make sure that you report it elsewhere and then it is reported. Social workers are professionals. They will come to the house, provide psychosocial support, provide individual counseling, assure the person of the safety, and then they remove the person and they take the person to the shelter. They can also contact POWA. POWA have got experts, social workers who are experts in GBV. They can be able to be of assistance.
The bottom line is offer assistance, get involved, open your eyes, be vigilant. And we're talking to not only people that are being abused, but look out for the signs. If you, especially with kids in schools as well, is that you don't really realize. And I mean, perhaps again, it's just a call out to teachers to say, keep an eye on the kids, make sure that they're well. You don't know what is happening behind closed doors. And if you can assist, there are organizations that are there to help you. So, Mary, let's get these facts out now, because this is urgent. It's a big call out. What is the number? I don't know if we've put it up on screen. What is the number that we can send our voice notes to add our voice to getting these bills passed? That's the most important thing. So tell us, what is that number we can use?
South Africans should visit joko-addyourvoice.uwina.com. I'm repeating, joko-addyourvoice.uwina.com, #end domestic silence.
Right. And then on that website, you'll get all of the details, and then will you be able to send your voice note through the website? Is that how it works?
Yes, it's correct. You just go to the joko-addyourvoice.uwina.com. It will give you highlights of how to send your voice note so that it can be collected to a petition
Fantastic. Mary, have you requested a meeting with the president to try and hand this over? Has he responded? Is this a step?
Yes, thank you, Leanne. I've written the email to the presidency. I got a response through WhatsApp, but they said the president is very much involved. The schedule is hectic. There is no time, but we never stipulated which time should be available. So I didn't get a positive response from the president. There is no date that was given to me.
All right. Well, hopefully you will collect millions of voices of South Africans that will assist you in getting that meeting and getting those bills passed. Because as you say, this could take up to 2 years, if not more, to get passed. And victims need it tomorrow. And that is the reality. In fact, they need it now. So we need as many voices as we possibly can to add to this campaign. Thanks for the work you're doing. Mary, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Leanne.
Mary is from POWA. She's talking to us here about this voice campaign that has been initiated by POWA in conjunction with JOCO. And basically, they're urging you to visit their website. I'm sure you've seen the trend on social media, End Domestic Silence, and you'll find all of the details there. So what they're asking you is to put a voice message out there urging the president to pass 3 important bills that will protect the women and children here in South Africa. All right, that was Mary Makgaba, and she was the Chief Executive Officer of POWA. Let's take a break.